So, I think I'll at least put 9/11 in the title of this video so that if anyone doesn't want to hear anything more related to 9/11, they don't have to. They don't have to click on it. They don't have to sit here and listen to me ramble on and then leave a comment like, get the fuck over it. I'm actually one of those people that doesn't like to talk about it and goes through moods where I'm just not in the mood to hear it. And especially this past weekend, the opening weekend of the NFL football season, with Sunday's games falling on September 11th and the 10th anniversary of the September 11th tragedy, I just could not get away. And I wanted to watch my Steelers game and not have to deal with any of it, but there was just so much patriotism. And you know, I have friends that after their tour of duty, they can't even watch MMA or boxing or professional wrestling anymore like they used to because they get too worked up punching at the screen, you know. I have friends that had to go through years of therapy for disorders related to them seeing their friends die, you know, and I do get into this mood where although I don't think I saw nearly as much action as anyone else, given that I was an electronics technician in the Army, you know, I still know what it's like to be overseas and not know if the enemy is just over the horizon, you know, and that's a very scary feeling. Where I was on September 11th, 2001 was in Camp Doha, Kuwait, right outside of Doha City. And for everybody in America, it happened for around 9 in the morning, you know, breakfast time. But for me, it was actually something that only settled in at dinner because of the time difference. And the entire lab that I was working with, we would all travel together to the chow hall. And the chow hall was almost completely empty. In fact, a lot of the third-party nationals that should have been serving us food weren't even working. And we were wondering if some sort of, you know, MWR concert was going on that we were missing, you know. Because we never knew anything, you know. We were cooped up in a lab all the time, tweaking on electronics and making sure things were in tolerance. We weren't very attached to any of the units out there, and so we didn't know when, say, a celebrity was coming through. So, yeah, I had no reason to think that anything really bad had happened at first, because we had seen, you know, emptiness in certain parts of Camp Doha before. But this was a little bit different because even the cooks were gone in the chow hall, and there was still food for us to eat, and we sat down to eat, and I went over to a soda dispenser and was filling up my glass, and I looked up at the TV and I saw one of the planes hit the building on the TV. We got Sky News in Camp Doha. And my first thought was, wow, how did somebody just happen to have a camera as that plane went into that building? That's awesome that they had the camera out. And then I looked closer at one of the replays. I'm like, why is that building smoking before the plane hits? You know, and it started to sink in that this was, you know, something that was big news. And then I read across the bottom of the screen that the Pentagon was hit. And the six of us that were at that table eating in a chow hall that would normally hold 1,000 soldiers, we looked around and we were like, oh shit, we're in the wrong place. You know, instead of going back to the barracks, we went back to the lab, because we all had our own computer stations and we could check the internet, you know, for more news. And we kept on getting updates. And I remember refreshing on CNN's front page, and the picture on CNN's front page kept on being updated. And at one point, all of New York seemed to be in one big gray cloud, and the only thing that you could see was that their vantage point was from behind the Statue of Liberty, you know, but everything else was just covered in gray smoke. And these pictures were updating like every 2 minutes, so I kept on refreshing on that page. We found our internet cut off. Couldn't email anyone at home for about 4 days. And for anyone out there who thinks that they have seen some evidence of something going on that people don't know about the 9/11 tragedy, and for all those truthers out there, I've got one for you. You know, I saw basically an entire group of soldiers leave Camp Doha before I ever saw UBL on Sky News. It wasn't Osama bin Laden, it was Usama bin Laden back then, because they didn't figure out how to pronounce his name yet, I suppose. But it's these little things that I remember, like why, you know, did all these troop movements happen before they even knew who it was that did it? You know, why was everyone scrambled in such a way in Kuwait when it turns out that they were you know, they were looking at Afghanistan as the possible place where he was at? So when I think about my service and how I got out of the Army, one of the reasons why was getting myself a copy of the Quran while I was in Kuwait. You know, and, you know, a lot of people say that the war was about oil. The war had nothing to do with terrorism and stuff, but I'm one of those people that really does think that it was a culture war, and it was a lot easier to demonize them because they were from a different religion. When I got out of the service, it was really hard for me to get out of being a soldier get out of soldier mode. And I took, after a few years, I had to basically downsize all of the soldier paraphernalia that I still had, all the uniforms and all that. But I took a lot of my fruit salad and I put it on the green scarf that I never had to wear the entire time I was in the service, but I still had to have in my wall locker. I decided to create a little wall knickknack out of it with all my fruit salad. And as an atheist who was very much pressured while I was in the service to convert to Christianity, pressured by many people who were in my chain of command, with many different incidents. I was, one of the worst was I was actually made to read out loud a book by a Christian author on a very long trip from Fort Lewis all the way down to Tuweli Army Depot in, it's around Salt Lake City. And that was like an entire day of me reading out loud this Christian book. And when I say forced, it's when you are in a position of authority like that, and you can't expect to ask your subordinates to do something and them not to think, well, if I don't do this, what's going to happen to me? So yeah, it's not like I had a gun to my head, but my squad leader was worried about my soul and made me read out loud a religious book. And I don't think that I love the same America that other people that say that they love America love. I love the America that protected me from all of the people who think that they love America, And now I look at things like the over $100 million spent on the soldier fitness tracker, to keep people from being, affected by war and all that, and part of it being mandatory fitness checking on the spiritual level. And then if you fail the spiritual fitness test, you are mandatorily made to do training, spiritual training. And this is coming from the chaplain corps. When I hear things like this, it gets me even more bitter about how much this war was predicated on how different the other culture was, and that they are not Christians.